Okay, so we're back here. We've done our first etch, we've done our second etch on our stone lithograph, and now we are going to get ready to print. I could have just gone into printing when I had finished my second etch. I could have prepared things to go ahead and print, but I kind of ran out of time, so I wanted to do a separate video for that. Plus, it's pretty long. You know, this whole process does take a long time to go through. So I can't imagine that this is a very enjoyable video unless, you know, you're just looking for strict information. So, and that's really what I'm trying to do here. So anyway, in the meantime, I've gotten some materials prepped. I have 2 bowls of cold water. I mixed up the ink that we saved last time, and I added some crayon black to it, and then I added some number 3 varnish. You know, I didn't necessarily have to use that, but my ink is a little bit looser than I probably normally would, so, but I'm gonna, you know, keep my fingers crossed, and we're gonna go from there. I kind of want to just be able to get the prints going and get this print moving, because I've got some other things I want to do. Over here, I have some Reeves BFK paper that I prepped. The image is just about 10.5 by 14 inches, and that would really only give me like 1/4 of an inch border if I cut down 22 by 30 pieces of paper into quarter sheets. So I just cut them into half sheets, and I might trim them down afterwards. But that my paper is prepped. I might add more to it later. I might actually be doing 2 editions. One with the image as it is, and then one with an image that has some acid tinting in it. But I don't want to acid tint it right away, because I want to pull some prints like this, because, you know, if the acid tinting doesn't go the way that I like it, then, you know, at least I have some images to work with. So okay, we're going to be printing. There's some press setup that we're going to do. I scraped my roller, scraped the old ink off of the roller, and laid out my ink slab, and I think we're about ready to go. I've got some paper towel mixed up here. I've got my lithotine, I have my asphaltum. So all of this setup is basically the same as the last video for the second etch video, where, you know, we prep all this stuff. You know, that's the same thing that you're gonna do. The only thing is we're not gonna etch it again. So we need all this, these steps are basically the same, where we're gonna do, we've done the first etch, we've done the second etch, there's the washout and roll up in the second etch, and now we're on to printing. So if you ever need to take a look at this, you know, if you get a little bit lost, take a look at this. In the back, there's a Tamarind Book of Lithography as a reference. That's a great resource. We've also got some more in-depth process that you can take down and read. There's another set over there. So everything that you need to know is available here. Okay, so now we need to wash out our image. There's a gum border on here, so we gummed it at the end of yesterday, and now we're gonna wash it out with lithotine. So we're washing out the image, and this is always a little bit scary, you know, you always kind of second guess what you're doing. Make sure you know, okay, I wanna use lithotine, and I do not wanna use water and lithotine, right? Those are the rules. If we remove one layer of drawing material, then the other layer of gum Arabic has to be there. If I remove the gum Arabic with water, then I need to have drawing material or ink layer, some sort of printing base. I did have some video issues with my last video, so I'm hoping that this time we don't run into the same issues. Sounded like there's some audio problems, and also there's a little camera jitter going on. Not sure what that was from. This is a new GoPro, so it's a good GoPro that I'm using. And okay, so I'm removing my inked image, And now I've got a bit of a ghost, right? So this is the kind of alchemy part of this whole process. Be gentle with your stone. We'll do a little bit more here. Just one more. Okay. That looks pretty good. And now we're ready for the asphaltum. I was actually able to use the asphaltum from last time, even though I left it out, and it actually stayed pretty good. I added a little bit more lithotrine to it, and there might be a little bit of chunkiness in there still, so I'm just gonna use this stick to kind of block any of that might come out. There we go. Just trying to spread it evenly. So I'm doing kind of like a wild pattern here with spirals, but I'm just trying to get this spread evenly over the stone, over the entire image area. And now I can buff that down a little bit more evenly. I don't want it all to dry in one area while I'm buffing it down. So again, this is asphaltum. It's got rosin in it, asphaltum, some beeswax, and this is just creating a really stable and hard printing base for my ink to cling to. In plate lithography, we might be using shellac, and in some other processes, we might be using floor wax. There we go, looks good. Okay. So now I'm gonna grab my dirty sponge. I wanna move my lithotrine out of the way and my asphaltum. Don't need these anymore. Okay, so I've got my dirty sponge. So we reestablished a base, a printing base in the asphaltum. It looks good. It's a nice even color. It's a nice amber color. It's not too thick. It's not too thin. I think this should be good. If anything, I'd be okay adding a little bit more to this, doing a second layer, but I don't think I would be okay with having any less of a layer, right? Because it is fairly light still, but so anyway, we're flooding the surface of the stone with water, and that is allowing the gum layer that's been buffed down to kind of loosen up, and now it's coming up from the stone, and it's also taking any of that asphaltum that was on top of it as well. So I'm starting to see my image, and I'm just being very delicate here. And once I get the majority of that ink up, I'm going to switch to my clean water, my clean sponge. Always use cold water with this process. I'm going to leave my bowl over here because I don't think I really need it. I'm going to go ahead and grab my roller. A little bit snappier sponging, right? And when I sponge, I don't want to have too much water on there. I can see, I know it's kind of hard to see, there's residual water on there. I don't want all that. I don't want any standing water. I want it to look like that. I want it to be wet, but no standing water on it. And you'll get to be able to tell from color. And I'm gonna go ahead and ink this up. 6, 7, 8. So that was 8 passes. Recharge my stone, or my roller. Now I've got the fan going, so I'm probably gonna have to turn that off, but I wanna talk to you a little bit about inking patterns. Okay, so a small stone like this and a small roller, I really don't have to put too much effort into considering what type of rollering pattern I'm going to be using with this, because the width of this covers the width of the image. If I come from this side, I'm going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And the most amount of ink gets laid down first, then the second greatest amount of ink, and the third greatest amount of ink, and then the least amount of ink. So this side gets the most and the least ink. This gets the 2 middle amounts of ink because it's coming off the roller and it's sticking to the stone. Now you can see how quickly that rolled up. You know, that could be a bad sign because if images that are under etch do tend to roll up very quickly, but I'm pretty confident that I etched it well. And I think what's happening is just, you know, I have a good ink consistency, and so it's going to ink up for me pretty quickly. But generally you want to use a stiffer ink, right? Don't necessarily do what I'm doing. I'm you know, working for myself here too, and I don't want to be here all day. So I used a little bit of a looser ink. But starting out, start with a harder ink, a stiffer ink, and roll up slowly. Take more proofs as well. Okay, stone like this, I'm probably just going to do the majority of my inking from this direction and from this direction. And I want to do both because if I start from this side, each time this side is going to have more ink than over here. Because as it rolls, you know, more ink is being deposited. So I'm going to stagger that, but I'm probably going to be pretty generally loose with my rolling patterns here. And I'll probably get tired of doing that pattern quite a bit. And so once in a while I'll do it like this. I might even once in a while do a diagonal pass from both corners. And that's just to break up the monotony of it a little bit, but also it does have a function. And I'll show you why we might do something like that in just a second. There's a couple other things that I want to show you. But typically when I'm inking up, I'll probably normally I would go charge my roller and then roll 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And then my stone is going to be drying. So I don't want to keep going, especially if my stone starts to get dry, because it'll start dry rolling. Then I would charge my roller, come from this direction, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I might do a third one from corners or from the side. And then I'm probably going to take a print because I think that's going to be enough ink for this stone. On a larger stone, I might go 8 times from this direction, 8 times from this direction, 8 from this direction, 8 from this direction, and then another from this one and another from that one. So like, you know, we kind of think about this, we have to kind of count how many times we're doing things, and we want to know what's working, what's not working. I don't want to have to do extra passes if I don't have to, because, you know, it's extra work. So, but I also don't want to just kind of do it different each time. So I want to make sure I'm counting in my head, I'm figuring out how I'm inking, I'm keeping track of all that information, because, you know, as a lithographer, we tend to become a superstitious group, and once something works for us, we tend to repeat the thing that's working. You know, because we do make a lot of mistakes. We have to learn from our mistakes in this process, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually kind of a fun thing. Okay, so let's go take a look at this stone over here because it's a little bit bigger. Okay, this is one of my student stones, and they finished printing this just a couple of days ago. But it's a larger stone, and so I wanted to show you things that would be a little bit different. Now, this is a large stone, and here's a pretty large roller as well. Now, I could roll from this direction and it would cover the majority of the imagery. But if I rolled from here, I would have that same issue. So I would roll 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I might do that again, 2, 3, 4, and then go charge. The next time I would come over and for the next pass and do 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, 6, right? And then I would repeat. Now, if I'm not comfortable using a large roller, I could use a small roller as well, right? But I'm reaching, and I'd have to do 2 passes, 3, 4, right? And here I might actually have to do 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Another thing with stones, larger stones, a lot of times these larger stones have a bit of a dip in the middle. And the scraper bar over there, if the imagery is close to the edge like it is on this stone, you know, we have to have a pretty big scraper bar. And the scraper bar is going to be hitting the edges, making more contact with the edges, not as much contact in the middle. So that also goes, you know, we might have to change the press a little bit, but that also might make it difficult to ink up. There might be, because of the edges of the roller, sometimes there's a little dip in the roller as well, and it might be reluctant to ink up. So another thing I could do, in addition to those different types of rolling, is roll diagonally, and that way it will actually ink up better in the middle, diagonally here. Another process would be to go, instead of doing it from the sides, I could go from the corners. So I'd start at this corner, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? And then I would go to this corner and do the same thing. Start at this direction, 1, 2, 3, 4. You get the idea. And then just keep going around the stone like that. Once you get better at keeping track of your rolling patterns, it's easier to keep track of. You don't have to think about it too much. You get better at just kind of feeling when the stone is ready to ink up. And it's just, in general, things get easier and faster. I'm gonna charge this. Got my sponge. Ink up a couple more times here. I want to make sure I'm covering the whole stone, right? Okay. Charge. So that's 2 passes. So I did 1 pass from here, 1 pass from this direction. And you can see the ink kind of build up on the edges. That's common. It could also be from, I have sharp edges, but maybe I also have some dry edges. Maybe my stone is drying a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna do one more. I'm kind of listening here. And then we'll do one more thing before we take a print. Okay. Now I can hear the sound that my roller's making, and it sounds nice and velvety. If I have too much ink on my slab, that texture, the sheen that's coming off of this is going to look different. It's also going to crackle. I don't want a crackling sound. I want a nice velvety sound. Hello. Okay, so Sorry about that. That was Lori, our art department secretary. Okay, so I'm inked up. I'm ready to take a print. I just need to adjust my press, line up my my stone, and I need to clean these edges, right? I don't want these edges to get on my print. So I'm gonna mix up an etch on the press. So some people will call this a press etch, and some people call it a fountain solution. I call it a anti-tint solution. Let's see. And when you mix this up, you want to have goggles and gloves and an apron. This is phosphoric acid. It's not quite as strong as nitric acid, but it's still dangerous, so we want to be careful, take precautions. And I have a bowl with some water in it. Now, typically, if I'm going to mix this up, there's a little recipe, so it's pretty standard. 1 ounce of gum arabic, 5 ounces of water, and 10 drops of phosphoric acid. Once you get a little bit more comfortable, you can kind of just mix it up on the spot. This looks like more than 5 ounces of water. I just kind of added some water to a small bowl. And let's do so I added about 20 drops. This is probably more like 7 or 8 ounces, but it's not going to hurt it if it's a little bit stronger. You don't even necessarily need the phosphoric acid if you don't want to. I have in the past just taken some of my spent gum arabic that has the nitric acid in it and poured that in a glass with some water, and that works as well. Put this here for now, take care of these later. And then I'm just gonna make sure that there's none on my hands, on my fingers. Okay, and then I'll take a little piece of woven etching blankets, and there's some in a little cup at each one of our printing stations. Mix this up. And the pad will be nice to, the ink will kind of stick to the pad. Now, I'm trying not to go into the image. I have used this anti-tint solution in the past as a way of kind of pulling out some areas that went a little too dark for me. The problem is, that will kind of, it does look slightly different when you go to print that. So, if I had some severe filling in and I just can't get it back out, I might take some of this in a woven pad and just gently go into the image and lightly scrub away some of the extra ink if there's not many other ways to get it out. So this is just, I want to do this before I take a print and clean all my borders. If your stone isn't doing this and there's no ink on your borders, then there's no need to do this. But I tend to mix one up out of habit and have it near me, just in case. It's good practice to have it. Okay, and I'll put this away, take my sponge, rinse it out. Now, I don't want to sponge my image. The last thing I did was inked it, right? So that ink was the way, because of the nap of the leather, that ink is nice and receptive. So it's kind of like, that when we check the length, it's like ready to be printed and it wants to adhere to that stone. So I don't want to put water on it. I don't want to sponge in the image area. So I'm just going to go around the border like this. If you go in a little bit, it's not a big deal. Now, it doesn't really matter if your stone is wet when you print this or right? So I can sponge it and go right in and pull a proof. But okay, so now I've got a little bit of that phosphoric acid and gum arabic in my sponge water. So the more I do that, the more that sponge water is going to become a little bit acidic, but it's also going to have a little bit of gum arabic, and that's a good thing because it's going to be reinforcing our etch. The gum arabic is going to be reinforcing our adsorbed gum layer. It's going to keep our stone, you know, accepting ink and rejecting ink in those areas that we want it to, and it's actually like a good thing to have ready for the stone. Okay, some people would probably prefer to proof with newsprint. I tend to go right into printing on good paper because, you know, newsprint will accept a certain amount of ink, whereas good paper like BFK will accept a little bit more. Now, the registration is a whole other beast. You know, this is just one layer, and I tend to hold them on the opposite corners, try to make sure your fingers are clean. This paper is large, so I'm gonna tear down my edges a little bit afterwards. So I don't mind if I get a little bit of ink, and if it's a little bit off center, you know, it's not gonna hurt anything. So I just kind of go around and place it. Once it's down, it's down. But actually, we forgot to do something. I'm gonna take this. That's actually clean, so I'm gonna be able to use that again. We did forget to do something. Okay. I have a tin pan all ready to go, and I know that this one is good, but you're gonna want a tin pan that's larger than your image, right? We need one that's larger than a stone. You wanna inspect it and see if there's any dings in it. Some of these tin pans are really old, and some of them have cracks and holes in them. I just want to make sure that there's not any cracks or holes in areas that are important. You can see a little dot right there. That's from, and there's one there too. That is from miscalculating a punch registration system, and that damaged the tin pan. If the tin pan is damaged and it's over the image area, then your image is going to reflect that. It might actually damage the stone. Okay, now you're going to want to choose a scraper bar. I've already done that. I removed a scraper bar that was slightly smaller, but the trick is with the scraper bar, that's this thing right here. This one is 10.5 inches. My image, I need to cover the entire image. Kind of stuck a little bit. There we go. I want my scraper bar to be smaller than the width of my stone, but larger than the image. I'm going to raise this up. I think I got a little bit of grease on my stone here. We'll see when I go to ink that again if that was grease or not. Feels like there's some grease on that too. Okay, so, you know, we're setting up our press right now. And I want to line this up. So I raised that up so that it's above my stone, okay? And I just want to follow this carefully all the way through so that I know that my stone is lined up accurately. It's not at a crooked angle or anything. And it's going to make contact with my image, but hopefully not be going over the edges. If my scraper bar goes over the edges, maybe it's wider than the stone, then I'm gonna have ridges in my scraper bar. And those ridges will damage the leather, and they will show up as white streaks when somebody else goes to print their image. I'm going to show you where some of these scraper bars are. Okay, these are some new ones that I made. It's just oak or maple. These are maple with some leather. You want to inspect them when you choose one for your stone. You want it to have nice, fairly taut. Let's find an older one here. You can see it's still in good shape. This is probably, this might be really old, you know. Some of these, they last forever if you take good care of them. This one is good. You want to inspect the leather. If you see any damage to the leather that might affect your print, you know, then don't choose that one. You also want to inspect the wood. Look for cracks in the wood. Sometimes the wood splits and you don't realize it. So you just want to inspect these before you move ahead. Okay, and I'm gonna need some tape. Okay, looks like we got a little bit left here. Okay, so I took out my old scraper bar. You know, you turn this, all the presses are essentially the same, and replaced it with this one. My stone is towards the middle because I'm inking it from that side. Sometimes they're closer to the back. It just depends on how big your stone is, things like that. Okay, so now I'm going to be dealing with the press a little bit. I'm going to line up the scraper bar so that it comes down directly right here. I don't want the scraper bar to come down here. I don't want the scraper bar to come down here. I want the scraper bar to come down here, right there. I don't want it on the image. I don't want it off the side of the stone. I want it right there. And sometimes that can be difficult if you don't give yourself enough room with the drawing. You need that space on the drawing, on the stone, for the scraper bar to make contact, to come down comfortably, and to come off the stone as well. So I really want to be very careful when I'm doing this. Okay, I'm going to take a piece of tape, put it right here. It can be anywhere along here, but you know, close to this edge is good. Okay, piece of white tape. Now I'm going to line up my stone exactly where I want that scraper bar to come down. I'm going to be as careful as possible here. And then I'm going to put tape, another piece of tape, right there. Double check. And then just double check it. Line it up right there. Check the stone. Looks good. Okay. Maybe even look from this side just to get a better look. It's close. Yeah, it's close. So that's good. Now I'm gonna pretend I run this through the press. Grab my tape. And it's gonna stop right there. Again, I don't want it to stop on the image. I want it to stop just past where the imagery is. So you can imagine, you have to pay very careful attention to your marks. You know, if you go over, you know, something bad will happen. And I'll talk about that next. And I might have to make minor adjustments when I'm printing, you know, after the first print, just to take a look. Okay. Okay. Now, the reason that I have to pay careful attention is if I kind of come over and loosey-goosey, you know, leave it like that and pull down my lever for my scraper bar, if it runs off of if it pushes off of the edge of the stone, this end of the stone might kick up under pressure and come back down and snap. Same thing. If I'm running this through the press and oops, I'm not paying attention and I go too far, then same thing, the front end of that stone might kick up and then snap the stone as well. So I want to be very careful to stop right there, okay? With the press bed, you can see if I'm turning this handle, the press bed's not moving because I haven't engaged my rollers yet. So now, I think you can see that. Now it's engaged. When I start to move my handle, sometimes it takes a little jiggle to lock it in. Now when I turn my roller, it's engaged. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to reposition my paper. I think actually this is the front of the paper, so I'm going to turn this over. See a watermark there? Yep, that's the front. And I'll just do it from over here. Put that down. I've got to get my tin pan. Typically you want your tin pan just up like this. Some people want to check this. I want to clean this side as well, but I used this recently. Let's see. I'm going to clean that a little bit. In case there's any dust on it. But I could clean this with mineral spirits as well. I'll put that down. Some people use blotters as a layer, so they would put the paper and then a blotter and then the tin pan. I've been getting good results with just using a tin pan, no extra paper at all, and I've been having good results. So I'm just going to lift up on my press bed, roll it into place, engage my press, see if I can get this locked in. There we go. And I want this to be loose to start with. I want to be able to take this all the way down and it's still not making contact with my stone. And then I'm going to tighten by hand. Every stone is going to be different. The thickness of the stone, the thickness of the scraper bar all determines how you do this and how high you set this. But you're going to have to do this with every stone. Hand tighten. Give it a good crank by hand. Then lift this up. Make sure that your image is lined up. I went past slightly, just intentionally. And now, so hand tighten as tight as you can get it, you know. Try your best, especially if you're, you know, I'm pretty big guy, so I can tighten that up pretty good. And then you're gonna do about a quarter turn. You're gonna do about a quarter turn. I'm gonna do a little bit less. But take it from here to there. That's about a quarter turn. And I'm gonna do a little bit less than that. And then I'm gonna see what the pressure feels like. A lot of this is just feeling. So I'm gonna lower it. See, it's kind of give me a little resistance. That seems really reasonable. I can lower this and raise it really easily. Let's take a look at the stone. Ooh, the stone is coming up. So I'm not gonna do much more than that. Let's move this. Yeah, let's see if we can move this a little bit closer. The end of my stone is actually coming up a little bit when I do that, so I just want to be careful. I would actually give it a little bit more pressure, not too much. Okay, now I want to hold on to this, make sure that it doesn't slip. Lower that. Okay, that's good. And now I need to add some grease. So there's usually some grease up here, but there's cans of grease on the last press back there. Take the grease off the tin pan, apply a little to my scraper bar, and put some down. I might actually grab a little bit more after I take this print. Lower that. Carefully run it through. I'm watching this one. Hopefully you can see that clearly. I'm watching that very carefully. And right to the end. Lift up on my press. Disengage here. Hold on to my tin pan. Take my spatula and kind of remove any extra ink. Sometimes there's ones that are like dangling down. And as it's coming through, I'll try and collect some of this ink and put it down for the next time. Put my spatula away. Carefully raise this. Lean it up against that. I don't want to set this anywhere else. I want to just leave it right there. And I can see, let's pull up this proof. That actually looks pretty good. Now, I didn't break the stone, so hallelujah. We love it when that doesn't happen. And so I've got a good print here. I might actually have a little bit of ink left on the print. I feel like the pressure, the amount of pressure seemed really light, but this is such a small stone, and I really want to be careful with the stone. So I'm going to leave the pressure for now, but sometimes we need to make adjustments. Oops. And I just want to investigate my... Okay. So let's talk about a few things here. When I'm printing, I'm going to go ahead and keep printing. I'm not going to have you guys hang out for it unless something occurs. But what I want to keep an eye on is my delicate areas, right? And my dense areas. So in my delicate areas, I want to watch that I'm not losing information. If information is getting lost, that's kind of like, you know, typical for printmaking, for lithography. Lightest areas, delicate areas, want to go lighter, and my dark areas want to get darker. So when I'm printing this, what I want is a nice rich black, right, in my darkest area. And this isn't fully printed yet. It'll get better. The next print will be a little bit darker. The print after that will be printing a little bit more fully also. I want to look at like areas like this. I can tell that's not fully inked, right? It's maybe fully inked, but it's not fully coming off of the stone. There's things that happen with lithography, and there's a lot of troubleshooting that you have to do. And this is kind of one of those things where you can't really anticipate everything that's going to happen until it happens, and then you have to problem solve. So you become an investigator. That's part of what I like about this. It's kind of like cooking. If something happens, then you need to figure out why it happened, how to prevent it in the future, you know, things like that. So generally, if something's going to happen, it's going to be like, say, my print's not printing fully. Maybe I need to change my ink consistency. So I'll go over, maybe I'll add more ink to the slab and pull another proof. If it's still not inking fully, maybe I need to loosen my ink. So maybe I'll add some number 3 varnish to it. If that doesn't work, then maybe I would want to, let's see, give it more passes. So ink the stone more. If that doesn't happen, if I see slight improvement, maybe I'll ink it even more on the next one. Maybe I'll increase the pressure if I feel like there's room for me to increase the pressure. But what I don't want to do is all of those things all at once. I don't want to go over, take a couple of prints. You know, I wouldn't do anything until I print this again. I'm not going to make any changes at all. I'm going to print this again and compare that one to this one. And then I'll make changes if needed. but I'm only going to make one change at a time per print. Because if I make multiple changes, then I won't be able to tell what the problem was, and I won't be able to correct it. I might even overcorrect, so I might have introduced a new problem. If I adjust the pressure on the press and I make my ink looser, then maybe that loose ink is too loose, and my image after 2 prints is going to start to fill in because the pressure is higher and the ink is a looser consistency. And then I might have a new problem, like my areas are filling in on me. So I want to really be careful to not overcompensate in one area. When I make changes to my process, then I want to only do it 1 print at a time. Okay, so let's pull one more print and see what we got. I'm going to try and do this about the same. Let's hear how the ink sounds. Still sounds pretty good. I do tend to add ink to the slab fairly often, probably more often than I should, but I'm pretty consistent about it. So I might add a little bit more ink to the slab right at the end of this, because I'm superstitious. We get superstitious. Ink. That's 8 times. That's 1 pass. Don't forget to wet your stone. If you forget to wet your stone, then your image is going to fill in. And we'll talk about that too. That was 8. You can see on the last one, my border started to hold ink because my stone is starting to dry. Charge my roller. I'm gonna go diagonally this time. I did a little bit less that time. There we go. And I'm not going to add ink. I'm going to add ink right after this. I'll talk to you about that as well. We'll do a little bit of troubleshooting at the end here, and we'll talk about what we do when we're done. I think that's about as much as I did last time. Take my fountain solution, press etch, or my anti-tint solution. Now they call it anti-tint solution because colored inks tend to tint out, so the pigment separates. And if I'm using like a red color ink, then the red is going to color my water, it's going to slowly color my sponge, but it won't color my paper. It'll go in the paper where it's supposed to, but the pigment is just separating from the body of the inks, and it's dyeing the water. So this helps remove that. There we go. Put my sponge right back in there. We'll go get my paper. I'm just going to flip this paper over so that I can just pick it up like this. There we go. Now once you get good at this and you get pretty comfortable, depending on the size of the stone and how many passes you have to do, you might be able to start getting one print every 5 minutes, and that's a pretty good run. Okay, so now there we go. I'm engaged. I don't want to go past the mark. I don't want to go behind the mark. I want to try and stay. The last one was good. I'm not going to make any changes yet. Just want to see how this turns out. Keeping my eye on this mark. And here we go. I don't want to stop midway through. If I stop halfway through, that scraper bar is going to leave a mark. Disengage my roller. If I forget to disengage my roller and I start to pull out my press bed, this is going to start flying like a flywheel, and it could be dangerous. So make sure you disengage that. Remove the excess. Now, I'm printing dry, meaning the paper is dry. Some people like to print wet, and I've had mixed results with both. So sometimes I do want to print wet, and that would mean that just before I take my print, I'll take my water and a spray bottle of water. If I'm printing wet, which can actually result in a little bit richer prints, maybe I'll do it later, spritz it just lightly, just a little bit of water spritzed on the paper, and bring it over, put it on my stone, and then I'll print. You'll feel it kind of stick to the stone a little bit better. Okay, so now I want to keep track of my prints, which one is first. And so I'll clean off the tables, make sure that they're clean, there's no ink on them, and I'll lay them out in an order that I can remember to see which print is printed which. Because I want to be able to see if changes are occurring. And that way I can keep looking after every print, go look at them and compare them. And you can see areas gradually getting darker, some areas maybe gradually getting lighter. You know, you want to keep track of what's happening. In this one, it looks like we've got, this is not printed as fully as that. So I'm looking at my dense areas the most, and then I'm looking at my lightest areas. This is a richer print than this one. I think I did my inking pretty much exactly the same way. So I might make a change. I could increase the pressure of the press, although I'm not really comfortable doing that with such a thin stone and a small stone with thin borders. I could add ink to the slab. I could add a little bit of varnish to the ink, but I'm not going to do that either because I tend to think I'm a little bit loose on my ink right now. I could add another piece of paper to my print if I don't want to increase the pressure. Maybe just add a second layer of paper to this and print with that, and that might actually help also. I'm actually not going to make any changes because I've got a feeling that if I just add a little bit of ink to the slab and I go a little bit slower with my rolling, I'm going to be able to get that print pretty good. And so I'm not going to make any changes. But I do want to show you another troubleshooting thing. Okay, maybe I'll go a tiny bit more pressure. That's like nothing. Okay, let's add one stripe to the press, or to the slab. And I will do this after about every 2 prints, and that's probably not recommended. I like to do it. I like to have fresh ink. I like to hear the sound of it. I like to hear the sound of the roller on my stone. After I've done that a few times and I feel like my ink might start to build up, I'll probably start removing a stripe of ink. That doesn't look too much, and add it right back into my mix or set it off to the side. So every time I do this, maybe I'll remove whatever I can pick up with one, like doing that, and then add one so that it's not building up too much. If my ink slab gets to be too thick, too built up, I'll know it just from the sound. See that little guy right there? I just kind of want to get that up. If you have any little globs of dried ink, get them out of there. Sometimes you'll get a piece of sponge on your roller. Just take out a damp sponge and sponge it off. Now I'm going to show you guys something that you want to look out for, that you don't want to do. I'm going to do it intentionally here, and hopefully not regretfully. Okay, if I have a stone, maybe I should do it on, yeah, let's do it on that stone over there. Let's test it. Okay, this stone was sitting. Oh, I better not. That's not my stone. Okay, I'm actually not going to demonstrate how to do this because what I don't want to do is ruin my stone before I've pulled too many prints. If I'm inking my stone, rolling ink, and the stone starts to get dry, and I accidentally am not paying careful attention, ooh, there we go. See, now it's too dark. I wasn't paying attention, went too dark. I want to stop as soon as I do that. Get water on the stone. Light, snappy rolls with my sponge. Light and snappy. And then take my roller and snap roll. Fast and light. Okay, and then I can get some of that back. Now this is also something that you might want to do intentionally if your image is not accepting ink in very delicate areas. Snap rolls. Okay, a snap roll that will hopefully, ideally, pull the ink off of the stone back onto the roller. Okay, and then more snappy sponging. There's things that we can do when things fill in. It's a little bit more complicated. And it's not something that I'm going to demonstrate because that's kind of like the troubleshooting aspect. Real light, snappy sponging. I'm still trying to get off residual grease, residual drawing material. Oops. Okay. Whew. I think we did it. Okay. Oh, it's still a little bit dark in there. I'm gonna try and do this one more time. Now, so yeah, that's why I didn't want to show you. I did it anyway, but I could have some bad results from that because this area wants to fill in on me, and it wanted to fill in on me before. Oops, you can see this is awkward. Okay, it's still kind of filling in on me. Okay, that's gonna have to be good enough. Okay, so I'm probably not gonna I'm not gonna keep rolling this up anymore. I'm probably gonna take a proof and try to remove extra ink that's on there. So you notice I wasn't charging up my roller in between this. What I'm gonna do is pull a proof, remove the excess ink, then maybe even pull another proof immediately after that to try and remove any extra ink. And hopefully that'll work. but that was called snap rolling. You know, you can do a lot with a snap roll if you make a mistake. That, you know, that could have been a pretty bad mistake, especially if I had kept inking. But let's pull a proof and see what it looks like. I'll probably use my good paper again. Now what I don't want to do is not do a snap roll and then do this, because once I do this, I'm hoping that the ink doesn't stay in the image. Like that. Yep, it was a little bit of ink on that side. Yeah, that's coming up. That should be fine. And actually, that's not a bad print when you consider that we didn't ink, like, charge a roller at all. Okay, so we're good. I'm going to continue printing, and then I will turn off the camera, and I might be back with an update if something happens. I'm going to pull some more prints in this state with the image like this, and then I'm going to do another video with acid tinting so you get to see that process. But we'll see you soon. Okay, so we're back, and I just wanted to cover a couple little things first. With the cleanup, if I'm going to be finished with my prints and I'm done with the edition, I can remove my stone, and then I'm going to clean up like I did in the after the etch, the first and second etch demonstrations. If I want to come back to this and print more later, I'm going to go ahead and ink this halfway up, so do like 2 passes, and then I'm going to take my rosin and talc my image, and then I'm going to put straight fresh gum arabic on the stone, move it around with my hand, and then buff it down. And that's going to be how I would finish off my my print. Then I could take my stone, put it away, and then I can come back another day. And of course, I would always do my cleanup, wrap my roller, clean up my ink slab, put away any extra ink. You can see over here I've got about 6 good prints that I'm happy with. I'm gonna go ahead and start my acid tinting now, and see what happens. You know, I'm not so attached to the image that if something happens that I don't like, that I'm not gonna be able to, you know, it's not gonna break my heart. So I'm gonna go ahead and play with the imagery. I wasn't really happy after I had thought about it a little bit more. I was kind of like using rubbing crayon to like go into these areas, and I was kind of having a little bit too much fun doing it. And I noticed that, of course, the smoke is not necessarily look like smoke anymore. So I want to go in and kind of burn out some areas. And what I'm going to do to start, okay, so I've got some gum arabic here and about 50 drops of nitric acid. So it's very, very hot. I didn't ink this up. Maybe I should have inked it up a little bit more, but there's still quite a bit of ink on there. And I actually want to go into some of these areas. I've got a bowl of water, and I have my dirty sponge, or a sponge that is not my clean sponge. I'm just going to go in and kind of burn out some of these flamey areas here. And some people might want to do this with, you might want to rosin and talc this. I think if you were to rosin this, it might actually show up a little bit better. But I'm going to just kind of keep this moving. I'm extending this out so that it looks a little bit more like flames in some of these areas. Now that the acid is very strong, it'll bite for about 2 minutes. It's also actually helping me, ideally, you know, in theory, pull out some of these areas where the etch. So you can see the bubbles happening here. And then I'm just going to remove that. So the gum, how much this affects the stone depends on the strength of the acid and for how long you leave it on there. So you would want to do this in stages and then proof it and then go again into some other areas. Now this is gum Arabic, so you can see it's kind of beating up on the, I'm going to do again some of these flame areas just to kind of give the highlights a little pop where the flames are. Because it's starting to fill in a little bit, you know, when I'm printing. So I want these flames to kind of pop a little bit more. Maybe. You can see it go frosty real quick. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now with the smoke, I think I'm gonna kind of like just move it around. I'm gonna just kind of wing it. So I just want to break up that texture a little bit. There we go. And I'm being real loose with this, you know. Okay, so the battery died, but I was pretty much done. I just swapped out my battery real quick. And so now I want to check and see what the results are like. So I just got my good sponge. You know, I want to kind of wipe up any acid that might have spilled. I don't think any of this was actually acid, but you know, do that with my dirty sponge. I'm gonna go ahead and charge my roller a little bit. Take my clean sponge back out, and let's see what we got. Hopefully it's something good. I did run into problems where my image was wanted to fill in quite a bit, and so some areas were kind of darkening up over here. I think I got a bit of a wedge of a stone, so it's thinner here than it is there. So when I run it through the press, the pressure gets slightly heavier. I can see the results already coming out of this, and I kind of like what I see. So I might do a little bit more. So when I'm rolling it up, some of the ink that was there before where I did my etch is coming off and coming onto my roller. Now I might want to do even a little bit more, but I like to proof in between, so let's do a little bit more inking, and then we'll pull a proof. So I did a bit more. I might have gone a little overboard with it. I got a little, kind of rushing a little bit here. You can see I added an extra piece of paper to my stack. And we're gonna see what we got here. It's not bad. That's probably not what I really wanted, but it's kind of interesting. We'll compare it to the other ones here. Yeah, you can see my image is much darker down here. Just through the process, you know, I don't really mind that. It's getting darker, and I like darker. So this is what's kind of new, is this information in here. So we've got it nice and clear with these sections, and I just wasn't really happy with the way that I drew it, but I'm not entirely happy with the way that it kind of reticulated on the surface either. But at least it kind of broke up the monotony and made it a little bit less, you know, graphic and stylized. Here it's a little bit more naturalistic and kind of blurry and kind of chaotic. So I don't mind that either. I'll probably go in. I'm not going to rework anything. This area did fill in, right? So I'm not going to worry about that too much. I used some of the acid tinting to reestablish some of these like flame kind of sections, so they popped a little bit. That's still there. I don't mind that, but yeah, overall it's mixed result, but it is what it is. I've got 6 good impressions over here, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all good enough to be in the edition, with the exception of maybe this one's a little bit light right in here. Looks like there's almost like a little bit of light right there, but these are all good. This one's good, that's good. So that's the best one. It's a little bit dark, but then I got some filling in here. So, but I've got 5, an addition of 5, a proof of 1, and then I'm gonna print a few more of these, and I might even do some more of that acid biting just for fun. So, and then I'm gonna clean up. You know, I mentioned how to clean up before. So just be careful when you're doing this. Take all your safety precautions. Use your goggles, your gloves, your aprons. Treat all the materials with respect. Treat the stones with respect, because, you know, one thing I forgot to mention too is, you know, when I put this on the press, I'm checking underneath it too. There's nothing on it. I wipe down the press. Even if there's like some dried gum or something, that pressure can snap it with just a small piece of material left on the press bed. So, but I'm gonna leave it at that, and thanks for watching the video. Hope it was helpful. Image, okay? I want to really look at it, and this is when I need to problem solve. Okay, I'm gonna turn this off for a second.